Good evening, and welcome to Karl Marx Does the Washing Up,
where we ponder ludicrous metaphysical nonsense in the time it takes to make 5 Tesco's basic microwave meals.
which is around 21 minutes.
It is indeed.
I'm Shy Telly,
And I'm Ilyas and Shy.
and today we're going to discuss meaning. Meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of our lives?
Do you want to start in such a grandiose manner? I like that, actually. So what is the meaning of life? Well, maybe it would be better if we answered it for each other. What do you think the meaning of my life is? And what do I think the meaning of your life is?
Yeah, but maybe we need to, does it have to have, what happens if life is meaningless? Then can we, then so I'm thinking neither of our lives have meaning.
So what, in their current state? Or do you think our lives lack meaning currently?
No, just life itself isn't meaningless.
So I'm comfortable with that notion, but I know that's a notion that makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
So I think, for me, I think that it does make people look very uncomfortable. And I think that, for me, the issue that I have is that everybody seems to equate meaning with purpose.
Yeah, that's true, but you don't think the two are interlinked?
No, I don't think so. I think...
your life can still have a purpose, even if it lacks a meaning.
No, the opposite.
Your life can lack meaning? No, your life can have a meaning, but it doesn't mean you have a purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there's this idea that unless there's a very linear purpose, the reason I am alive is to do this. And everything and life is about achieving this or going towards this point. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that...
that's very linear, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. It's a very linear thought process.
And I think the most meaningful life that you can have, or when you achieve deep meaning in your life, is actually when you suspend that need for a point or that need for a purpose to strive towards, and you just sit and in a state of awe and wonder and gratitude for that which is, and you go to the very center, the core reality of everything that exists. That's when things hold the biggest meaning, when you can't actually box them up linguistically into anything, right?
But then, so what if you believe that your life has meaning, but every decision you take is like a garden of forking paths, so that you're not on a linear path, but you still do have an overall purpose?
Yeah, so you can have a purpose. I don't think that reduces the meaning, but I don't think meaning is dependent on purpose.
Okay. So what about yourself, though? So if you think that, and then you apply that to your own life, what do you think about your own life?
As in, do I have a purpose?
Yeah. And do you have... Yeah.
Well, I don't. I don't know if I have a purpose. There may be certain things which have, huge resonance in my life that I think I should kind of move towards and flow
persevere with, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe you can call certain things, a calling or whatever. I don't know if that's a bit grandiose. But,
yeah.
I don't know if... I don't think that those are, so fundamental to my life having meaning. I think I could, suspend all that and actually live an intensely meaningful life. And I think the easy way to kind of sort of in a way prove this idea is that if you think about the most meaningful moments in your life, what are they? What if you just think for a few seconds, what are the most meaningful moments in your life?
So for me, it's actually the moments that have made me the happiest. And I think a lot of those moments have actually involved family. So maybe the most meaningful moments in my life have actually involved... Yeah, so I think they've all involved family.
Yeah. So there's no, purpose around that?
No, that's just, the bonds that I've made and connection, right?
Yeah. So the meaning just exists through the nature of the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist because... it's moving towards anything.
No.
They're just quite pointless moments that you've spent with people or with your family or in nature.
And they've really resonated with me, right? Enough for me to call upon them when you said that question.
Yeah.
But what about if I say that to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a similar sort of thing, I think. Well, for me, maybe a lot of the most meaningful moments in my life are me alone with nature. I think that's actually maybe something that's surprising, that I always think it's to do with family or friends, or I assume it's meant to be that way, but actually it's when I'm in the middle of the ocean at night Because this is what I do all the time.
Yeah. I was going to
You
say,
know, like,
do you mean the
I don't
ocean
know.
in West London?
Yeah.
I was going to
West
say,
London
yeah.
Ocean. So when in the West London Ocean,
I think that's an important question to ask
think it's
yourself,
just-
though. I wonder how many people have asked themselves, like, what is the most meaningful moments of their life?
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that the majority of people would say things which are quite
Standard, right?
well, quite purposeless. They're quite
Yeah.
empty of a linear goal.
So is being alone with nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just at one with the universe.
Yeah.
Whatever, or just
Or at
connecting
one
with
with-
something. There's
yeah.
some intimacy. I think intimacy or connection lies at the heart of most of these meaningful moments.
But then is that due to a misunderstanding of what is a meaningful moment?
How do you mean?
So my most meaningful moments are with my family. And I could derive from that my meaning in life is to have a family of my own.
Yeah. So
And-
I guess you can abstract a...
But maybe I'm looking at it the other way. Maybe I've always thought that the meaning of my life is family, and as a result, the most meaningful moments in my life have involved family. And if your meaning in life is to connect with nature, the most meaningful moments in your life have been when you've connected with nature.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is... Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's maybe the thing that might seem the most important is to pursue it like a sort of spirituality.
Yeah.
Connect with God, to do these sort of things.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't necessarily need to be the meaning of my life is to do this, to achieve this. It's because I'm noticing that the most intense, most beautiful experiences that I've had in my life are these things and in this state. And I just want to have more of that in my life. And to achieve that deep level of connection. Right?
Yeah.
So then it doesn't necessarily mean you don't need to make it to the point that it's a purpose, right? Or something to constantly lust after or crave towards.
Yeah, but then I
just
suppose some people need that motivation, don't they? Like we label it a purpose or a calling just to motivate us to that moment. Maybe they're just semantics rather than actual.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that also it does like switch like something from a temporal perspective.
Yeah, it's
from the moment into the future.
Yeah.
And that can also have sometimes a negative effect on actually the ability to suspend to the meaningfulness of the moment, right? Because if you're always lusting after this connection,
Then
or like if you're so focused now constantly on the idea that you have to have a family,
then
you probably won't enjoy the time you spend with your family.
No, I think that's very true. But then conversely to that, if these are the most meaningful moments of my life, why don't I just spend my life living that moment?
Yeah.
Because why do we spend so much time doing meaningless moments?
Well, I think generally speaking, a moment is meaningless when you're not connected to it. Like when you're not connected to what is actually happening.
Yeah, but
So
we
if you're
said
just
that with
looking at a
regard.
flower.
Yeah, that's true. But we said that with regards to loneliness, right? Because there will always be points when we're lonely, right?
Yeah. So I think meaningful moments or something that feels meaningful is when that loneliness suspends, that barrier of connection suspends. Like what we said was the difference. What creates loneliness is where there is like a barrier to connection.
Yeah, and an isolation, right?
Yeah, an isolation.
Yeah.
So when all the things that create that are suspended, then maybe the antithesis of loneliness is meaning.
Yeah.
Which is never how I would have said it before.
No.
But...
Or how you would probably ever say it again.
Again, yeah.
Yeah. But in this moment, it does make sense.
But yeah. Meaning, for me, everything in life is all about connection. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. And I think that's really essentially the case for everything. If you think about anything that is of any use, anything that brings you joy is of...
Yeah, but is that because, when you have a connection, it prompts a reaction from you, right? Is that what it is? Like, so when you're not connected to something, you don't necessarily have a reaction to it. When you're isolated from something, the only reaction you really have to it is like a feeling of loneliness, maybe a feeling of loss. But when you're connected to something, then you can experience more emotions. Is that why?
No, I think more because we feel a sense of expansiveness, right?
Yeah, and what does that mean there?
Because in the moment of connection, you recontextualize the self and the boundaries of the self, right? They exist beyond the finitude of your body, and they sort of extend towards something else. And maybe my case being with nature is the height of that.
Yeah.
But another way to achieve like somewhat similar thing to move into that space is through like family.
Yeah, of course. Because you're still making an intense connection, and you are losing the sense of self, right?
Yeah.
Or recontextualizing your sense of self within the context of others.
Others, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
I do agree with that.
And I think that loneliness is when we create this sort of idea that only, like, reality is only the self. Right?
Yeah.
And when we dissolve the notion that reality is only the self,
Then
we aren't. We lose a sense of constriction, right? And there's a certain freedom that comes because you exist beyond yourself.
No, so I really agree with that. But what I'm confused about is actually how we have the same meaning.
So we have as in like me and you have the same meaning for life, or that we hold the same perspective on meaning.
Well, I think we hold the same perspective on meaning. We maybe go about it in different ways, but we hold the same perspective. And I don't know if I would have thought that before we discussed this.
Yeah, we've never actually had this conversation about like what the meaning is of our life.
Yeah, and also we live our lives in quite different ways. But maybe sometimes in the same way, but also maybe our similarities outweigh our differences. But we do things differently in our lives. We still do have the same perspective on meaning.
I mean, really, what's the difference? Yours is just a bit more high energy. I'm just like sit still and meditate more, sleep more.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, maybe
you're just like me on coke.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just a bit more restless.
Yeah,
maybe more than a bit.
Yeah, but then,
but I'm you from maybe
a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, we do often say we are living the same lives.
Yeah,
but is that a result of us sharing the same perspective on meaning? So if people thought the same way of us with regards to meaning, would they be living similar lives to us?
Well, who says they're not living similar? Maybe they're living the pre-lives of us or the post-lives of us.
The post-lives of us, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, maybe there's only really like a handful of lives and they're just recycling.
So that's a big question, actually.
So maybe in our past life we were a nihilist.
Yeah, and in our post-lives?
Post-life, what is it even this called? This isn't in a degree like to some degree like a sense of nihilism.
But everything is.
What?
Yeah, but as in, like every discussion on meaning does involve a sense of nihilism, I think.
Yeah. But I think this is the difference: is that there's all this like polarity between like a nihilism and a spiritualism, and I think they're essentially the same.
But they're just
the same thing.
Yeah.
They're just painted a different color.
Yeah.
So nihilism believes in like a nothingness, and then spiritualism is also to do with a nothingness. But it's just making love to a nothingness.
Yeah, making a connection with it. And whereas this is, but you're also still making a connection to the nothingness in nihilism.
Yeah.
But you're just dismissing it.
Yeah, a void that sucks rather than like feeds.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if we just like see that the nothingness without such a pessimistic view and just see that the nothingness feeds, like that if this doesn't have meaning, like the world may have a purpose, it may not have a purpose. It's very hard for us to come to any conclusion on that. But if it's completely purposeless, but you can actually understand like the complete in a world which has no purpose and there's this amount of beauty, that's
the purpose.
Fucking beautiful. Like that's so meaningful to like just in a world which has no purpose, if that's the case, and you can look at that tree and see like 100 different shadows.
You're obsessed with the tree.
And the way the sort of, light
shines off it or whatever.
And all that sort of stuff. And then,
so is that the purpose of the tree? To provide us with an experience of beauty?
I don't know what
is that the meaning of the tree?
I don't know what the purpose of the tree is.
Is that what the meaning of the tree is?
Well, I just generally think that the world exists and everything in it to create some ecological sense of self-maintaining balance that just moves and flows and falls. And we're all part of that, right? And we might have
that's the case,
individual purposes within that, but it's all serving that sort of purpose, right? But what if that's also, in a sense, a purposelessness? We're just a universe trying to sustain balance or attain balance.
Yeah, so within that context, there must be people whose purpose is to destroy that balance.
Yeah, but only to destruct and rebuild to find the balance, right?
Yeah.
Like a universal balance.
Yeah, exactly. But then what do you think the meaning of society is then? Because if we deviate, like purpose, I don't think we'll ever really agree
Well, the
on.
purpose of society is to sort of defy
Not the purpose.
the
What do you think?
ecological balance.